sold my soul at the crossroads. Lay it, Dougie.
Il y a quelques semaines, le groupe de rock The Dead Daisies, emmené par le chanteur John Corabi, annonçait la sortie de son prochain album Lookin For Trouble, un hommage à la musique blues avec des reprises de standards comme Boom Boom, Sweet Home Chicago, Thrill Is Gone ou Crossroads. Un album qui célèbre les premières influences musicales du groupe et notamment certains artistes du British Blues Boom, un mouvement apparu au début des années 60 qui a permis la redécouverte du blues sous l'impulsion de formations comme les Rolling Stones, Led Zeppelin, Cream, The Animals et bien d'autres. Eh bien les amis, à l'occasion du récent passage du groupe en France, j'ai eu le plaisir de rencontrer le chanteur John Corabi accompagné du guitariste Doug Aldrich pour une interview et une session acoustique exclusive. Un entretien à la croisée des chemins que je vous propose de découvrir d'abord en écoutant leur version unplugged du standard Crossroads. Bon visionnage.
I went down to the crossroads, fell down on my knees. I went down to the crossroads, fell down on my knees. Yeah, I'm begging you for mercy, won't you take me please? I went down to the crossroads, tried to make it right. I went down to the crossroads, tried to make it right. Well, nobody seemed to know me, everybody just passed me by. I remember the day I lost my way. I was down in a hole, yeah, sold my soul at the crossroads. Lay it, Dougie. Going down to Rosedale, take my runner by my side. Going down to Rosedale, take my runner by my side. Yeah, you can still buy a house there on the riverside. Woo. I remember the day when I lost my way. I was down in a hole, yeah, sold my soul at the crossroads. I believe, I believe, I believe, yeah, yeah, yeah. Believe I'm sinking down. Historically, the Dead Daisies have always done a cover song from the bands of the 60s and 70s. You know, we did The Who and CRÉDITS, the Beatles. So now we said, you know, let's go back even further and take these songs and make them our own. But these are all the songs and bands that our heroes, Led Zeppelin, Aerosmith, this is what they grew up listening to. So we wanted to go back even further. If you really think about it, if it wasn't for all these old blues artists, you wouldn't have rock and roll. You wouldn't have country music. You wouldn't have rap. I think the blues kind of inspired every genre of music except maybe classical. When we recorded the songs, it was very important to us to make it sound like the Dead Daisies. I mean, what's the point of doing the song exactly the same way that somebody else did it? It was funny. That was one of the quotes that we would say when we were jamming. What would Led Zeppelin do? One of the things that we were referring to is like Zeppelin's version of When the Levee Breaks. If you listen to the original and then Led Zeppelin's version, it's completely different musically, but the lyrics and the melody are the same. They kept that intact.
We basically would play through all the ideas. We'd play through individually and kind of experiment. And little by little, it started to become, you know, our own take on a classic song.
All of these songs were all songs that we had heard, like Crossroads, for example. We grew up listening to Cream and Leonard Skinner. Then you start researching, you know, we start playing things and we're like, oh, this guy wrote that, you know what I mean? You start figuring out the history of the song. Same with Walking the Dog. You know, I knew that song from Aerosmith, first record. And then you start doing the history and you're like, oh, this guy Rufus Thomas wrote this song, you know. So I'm not the most well-versed with blues, but it definitely, once we started doing it and really getting into it, you start researching and find these unbelievable, brilliant stories about all these different artists like Leadbelly and Robert Johnson.
And it was such a broad, open painting that we could do whatever we wanted to it. With Crossroads as an example, you know, people are used to a rocking version, so we did our own.
I remember the day I lost my way. I was down in a hole, yeah, sold my soul at the crossroads.
That's part of us making it our own. You know, we wanted to take the structure of the song and keep that, which we did. But that was, John suggested a different groove, and we just jumped on it. And that was like, it was a foot stomping, really good groove, and it moved in the same way that the Cream version moved. And then our producer, Marty Fredrickson, said, hey, you guys, we should make this our own. So we inserted that new part so John could do his bit.
When we recorded the song, you know, we added that part. Marty and I wanted to just kind of write some lyrics that would make people aware of the myth or the legend. So we say, I remember the day where I lost my way. I was down in a hole. I sold my soul at the crossroads. So it just kind of clarifies the whole Robert Johnson story, I think, a little more for those that don't know the story. But it's funny that you picked, we were jamming and we took little parts of like the way the Animals recorded. But if you really listen to Suzie Q in this song as well, he kind of refers to Boom Boom for a minute. He says, I like the way you walk. I like the way you talk. You know, ooh, Suzie Q.
The way you walk.
We just took all these things and put them in and just tried to make it Dead Daisies with all of our influences in there. I was actually in the studio with Marty and I was on my phone scrolling and I saw this new song from Slash's new blues record, and I was like, shit. Like, no. Whatever, but it's a great album. But I think he stuck with a more traditional approach.
The more the better, really, because it's a kind of music that the fans of blues and blues rock, they want it all. They never get tired of it, and everyone's got a different take on these classics. Slash did a great job, but we really love our record too, so it's all good.
The studio that we went to is just legendary. They did a beautiful documentary on the Muscle Shoals sound and all the different bands that went there to record. Aretha Franklin, Otis Redding, the Allman Brothers, Bob Seger, the Stones, Rod Stewart. It was very important for us to go. The studio is actually a functioning studio, but it's also a museum. So we were looking at all these photos and all these old mics and just the sound the room had.
I'll tell you a little secret that the studio was very vintage. You know, it was nowadays when you're recording, you have a headphone mix and it's pretty clear, it's pretty good. And this was this headphone mix, the equipment was from the 40s or 50s, whatever. So it was a little bit of cracks and, noises and stuff like that going on. So it was like, it took me a minute to get it to where I could hear everybody. Because then when you're playing together, you're playing off each other. And that's very important. So that was, for me, a challenging part, is just trying to get so I could hear everybody.
I think my biggest challenge was singing after I had whiskey. But other than that, it was pretty awesome. Actually, that's spot on. That's what the blues is. It's about emotion. It's like all those songs like my wife left me, my dog died, my house burned down, I don't have any money. So yeah, that quote is right on the money. I love the Memphis Mini version of When the Levee Breaks, I think is brilliant. I also love the song In My Time of Dying that Led Zeppelin recorded. The original version, I believe, is called Jesus Make My Dying Bed. Bob Dylan did a version, and his version is fucking awesome.
The complete works of Robert Johnson is insane. You've got everything from Hellhounds on My Trail to Mean Woman Blues. He did a lot of versions of the same song, and they're all slightly different. It's really cool. Howlin' Wolf, Willie Dixon, Muddy Waters, all these guys, John Lee Hooker.
Yeah.
All these guys have essential albums with all their hits. Even something recent like when Aerosmith did Honkin' on Bobo. It's pretty cool when you go and listen to what they did with that.